failure of the Hunchback film, I explored the elements of the movie's plot, characters, didactic values imparted, music, setting, and the type of audience which it was directed to. Today, I'm going to discuss the application of the Disney formula to Victor Hugo's cast of original characters, including Quasimodo, Archdeacon Claude Frollo, the Gypsy Esmeralda, the Captain of the Guard Phoebus, and the talking gargoyle sidekicks. First of all, Quasimodo, who is the hunchback in the story. He is Disneyfied in the sense that Disney decides to transform him from the animal-like recluse that he is in the novel to what Turin describes as, quote, a sensitive new age guy, cuddly enough to be called Quasi by his inmates, burdened not by a severe deformity or deafness, but by the curse of modern times, lack of self-esteem, end quote. He surprisingly shows little resentment for his lack of good looks, but just longs to leave his lonely bell tower, to have freedom, and mingle among the normal people. New York Times critic Janet Maslin calls Quasimodo a sugary sweet modification of the original Quasimodo by additionally Disneyfying him, by giving him a truly good-hearted nature that prevails, despite the fact that he's continually oppressed by the villain of the tale, Judge Frollo. Now, despite all of Disney's efforts to make Quasi over, Hugo's theme still remains very strong in the fact that Quasimodo cannot win the love of the story's heroine, Esmeralda, because of his outer appearance. Peter Stack of the San Francisco Chronicle guessed that it may be hard for an audience of Disney fans to accept that the hero of the tale is never rewarded with the love of the heroine. Disney does not grant him the gift of transformation to be with his true love, like the Beast is given in Disney's animated film, Beauty and the Beast, which, in this case for Quasimodo, would be plastic surgery. Surprisingly, Quasimodo doesn't even undergo any real internal revelations, considering he's just as pure and kind-hearted at the end of the film as he was at the beginning. He's just doomed to be an outcast because of his ugliness. The next character I'm going to discuss is the villain, the Archdeacon Claude Frollo. Frollo is first Disneyfied in the politically correct sense that he is turned into a secular judge, instead of being a dishonored archdeacon that he is in Hugo's novel. Disney decided to try to conform him into the archetype of bad by making him conform to a simply evil villain, so states the AWN critic Arnold Laster. Disney does its absolute best to erase any sign of his humanity by only making him take Quasimodo into his care because of his own evil intentions in the future, and not because he pities the lost babe, like Frollo does in Hugo's original story. Now, Disney might have succeeded in creating a simply black-hearted villain if Disney hadn't kept in Frollo's inner torment, an especially important theme in Hugo's novel, between lusting after the beautiful heroine Esmeralda and following his wish to wipe out the heathen gypsy nation. Laster surmised that he began to persecute the city in search for her because he was, quote, horrified by his own sexuality, he could no longer bear witness to love, end quote. Turin notes that Disney has actually received some small praise for making a surprisingly realistic character. But I ask, since when had Disney and realism coincided? The next character that is necessary in the Disney cast of the formula is the heroine, or the Disney princess. In that case, that is the gypsy Esmeralda. Along with Disney bestowing upon her an air of modern spunkiness, she is given a new motive and is now an active voice for minority gypsy rights. Literary scholar for the Literature Resource Center, Boyd Tonkin, states that Esmeralda fits seemingly perfect into the role of the cussed, can-do spirit of today's heroine. Similar to Disney's heroine Pocahontas, Esmeralda sought to prove that people of all races and social statuses should be considered equal. her entire character is modified to make her a much nobler heroine than she is in the novel. For instance, when she dismisses Frollo's affection for her, she doesn't do it by shouting at him, "Thou art old, thou art ugly," like the considerably more shallow Esmeralda does in Hugo's novel, but because she's disgusted with his distorted sense of justice. Yet, at the same time, Hugo's elements can't be entirely hidden in the story. The Washington Post notes that Esmeralda is said to be, quote, "the sexiest cartoon character since Jessica Rabbit," end quote. This would surely be a more accurate depiction of the character Hugo had in mind, who was notorious for awakening sexual desires in all types of men and arousing extreme jealousy in women. Esmeralda also strays from the Disney formula and complies more with Hugo's tale when she ends up picking the pretty boy, the handsome soldier Phoebus, to be her prince. In the Disney film, Esmeralda has a rather touching moment with Quasimodo, where she informs him that his outer appearance does not make him a monster, and concludes that maybe Frollo was wrong about the both of us. Contradictory to this conversation about valuing inner beauty, Esmeralda does not pick the inwardly beautiful Quasimodo. The next member in our cast is the Disney Prince, which in this case is the captain of the guard, Phoebus. Now, Phoebus is the only character to be laughably redone to fit the formula's need for a handsome Prince Charming. Phoebus is merely an attractive captain who lacks a great sexual presence, according to Laster. I find this personally amusing when we compare him to the Phoebus in Hugo's novel, who was a well-known womanizer. Laster brings up another way in which Phoebus is Disneyfied, in the sense that he is given a modern twist, like Esmeralda, in the fact that he has, quote, "the capacity to say no to a law and order which scorns justice and liberty," end quote. Phoebus displays this when he bucks Frollo's orders to needlessly murder civilians in a hunt for Esmeralda's whereabouts in the film. Now, the last, not quite so important characters as the rest are the cute sidekicks that Disney insists on inserting into its movies. Now, most Disney movies offer settings that lend themselves to the creation of adorable animal sidekicks. But the critic Maslin observes that the cold setting of the Notre Dame Cathedral offers none. So Disney could only come up with creating a few funny talking gargoyles who conflict around Quasimodo, but they serve no real purpose in the story. In conclusion, I'd like to say that this film did not receive a place of honor because of its failed recasting of the characters. In the end, when you add all the elements, besides the ones that I have time to discuss today, Disney's The Hunchback of Notre Dame, in the end, will neither satisfy Hugo nor Disney fan. Thank you.